It was Tuesday. Not the promising kind of Tuesday when the week still holds potential, but the soul-crushing kind when you realize you've still got 3 more days of corporate hell to endure. Ellie Knox, was knee-deep in ticket requests from people who couldn't figure out how to plug in a monitor, let alone operate the quantum processors quantum tech was supposedly famous for. Have you tried turning it off and on again? I muttered into my headset for the 17th time that day, rolling my eyes so hard I could practically see my own frontal lobe. That's when she walked in, a woman with my face, only better. Her hair was the same unruly auburn as mine, but styled with some futuristic undercut I'd never have the guts to try. She wore clothes that looked like what a fashion designer might create if asked to interpret tech support but make it cyberpunk. And she was staring right at me with an expression that said, "You poor, clueless creature." I ended the call with my usual quantum tech values your business lie and stood up. "Can I help you? And if you say you're my long-lost twin, I'm going to need you to take that cliché back to whatever daytime soap opera you escaped from." "Not your twin," she said, her voice eerily similar to mine but with a confidence I reserved exclusively for karaoke nights after 3 margaritas. "I'm you. From 2037. I laughed so hard my desk neighbor Theo actually removed his noise-canceling headphones to glare at me.
Right.
"And I'm the Queen of Mars. You'll never visit Mars, actually. Terrible allergies to the terraforming pollen." She pulled out a small metallic card and slid it across my desk. "Temporal verification. Your retinal scan should confirm it." Because I'd clearly lost my mind, or maybe because customer service had finally broken my capacity to resist absurdity, I picked up the card. A thin beam of light shot out, scanned my eyes, and projected a hologram showing my complete DNA sequence alongside timestamps that claimed it was both from today and 12 years in the future. "I call myself Nova now," she said. "Less pedestrian than Ellie, don't you think?" "I think you've got an impressive toy and way too much information about me," I replied, pushing the card back. "What do you want?" "Because identity theft is so 2023. I need your help. In approximately 4 hours, there's going to be a catastrophic meltdown in the experimental quantum computing division that will cause a temporal fracture. Reality, as you know it will, let's just say, change, and not in that inspiring way your motivational desk calendar suggests." I stared at her, looking for signs of the practical joke. Was Theo finally retaliating for the time I programmed his AI assistant to speak exclusively in pirate slang? "And you know this how?" "Because I lived through it," Nova said, her sarcastic smile fading into something more genuine. "Look at your left wrist." I glanced down at the small crescent-shaped birthmark I'd had since, well, birth. Nova held up her own wrist, showing an identical mark, except hers was surrounded by an intricate scar that looked like a starburst. "This is what happens when time starts to unravel around you. Trust me, it hurts worse than those platform boots you thought were a good idea at Becky's wedding." I winced. I hadn't told anyone about those boots or the sprained ankle they'd caused. "Let's say I believe you, which I absolutely don't. What exactly do you expect me to do?" "I reset passwords and troubleshoot printer issues. I don't exactly have access to the experimental quantum computing division." "No," Nova agreed, reaching into her pocket and pulling out what looked like a security badge. "But Miles Ryder does." I felt my stomach drop. Miles was the cute, slightly awkward security engineer I'd been flirting with for months over stale breakroom coffee. "How do you know about Miles?" "Please. You think just because he eventually becomes your ex-husband that I'd forget him?" "My what?" I practically shrieked.
Oops.
Spoilers. She didn't look remotely sorry. "Let's focus on the imminent disaster, shall we? Less complicated. For security breaches, 2 close calls with the actual Miles, who Nova insisted on referring to as Captain Heartbreak, and 1 unconvincing story about being new consultants later, we were standing in front of the door to the quantum computing lab. "This is insane," I whispered as Nova hacked the door with technology that made our current systems look like etch-a-sketches. "We're going to get fired. Or arrested. Or both. You think this is bad? Wait until you see what happens when the space-time continuum has a hiccup." HR doesn't exactly have a policy for accidentally merged with your desk chair scenarios. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a lab filled with equipment that looked like a cross between modern computer servers and something out of a fever dream. At the center stood a column of shimmering energy contained within a transparent cylinder, the quantum core. What exactly are we looking for? I asked, staying close to the door. Evidence of sabotage. Nova moved confidently toward a control panel. Someone deliberately destabilized the containment field. The question is who and She pointed to a small device attached to the underside of the console. It pulsed with a faint blue light. That's not standard quantum tech equipment, I said, professional pride momentarily overriding my fear. Good eye. It's a quantum destabilizer. Only 5 people in the world know how to build one this small. Nova carefully photographed it with another device from her pocket. And one of them is Dr. Vex. Doctor who? Dr. Lillian Vex. Currently your company's head of research. Future megalomaniac with a grudge against linear time. I scrolled through my mental directory of quantum tech executives. We don't have a Dr. Vex. Nova froze, then slowly turned to face me. What did you say? There's no Dr. Vex at Quantum Tech. Our head of research is Dr. Prisha Kapoor. Nova's face paled. That's not right. She shouldn't be here for another 3 years after. She was cut off by a security alert blaring through the lab. Red lights began to flash as a computerized voice announced a containment breach. What's happening? I shouted over the alarm. Nova was already moving, fingers flying over the control panel. Someone's accelerated the timeline. They know I'm here. She looked up at me, fear replacing her earlier confidence. We have less than 30 minutes before this whole building becomes ground zero for the worst temporal disaster since 2029. What happened in 2029? Nothing, because I stopped it. This one's going to be trickier. She grabbed my arm. I need you to trust me. Why should I? Because I'm you, she said simply. And whatever else changes, we never lie to ourselves. As if on cue, the lab door slid open again. A woman in an impeccable white suit stood in the doorway, flanked by security guards. Her smile was as cold as liquid nitrogen. Dr. Kapoor, I presume? Nova said, positioning herself slightly in front of me. Not exactly, the woman replied, her voice shifting into an accent I couldn't place. But I believe you know me as Dr. Vex. The woman calling herself Dr. Vex dismissed the security guards with a wave. Give us the room, gentlemen. Ms. Knox and I have some temporal matters to discuss. The guards looked confused but backed out. Apparently, when you exude that much authority, people just do what you say, even if what you say includes the word temporal. You're not supposed to be here, Nova said, her hand tightening around my arm. Neither are you, darling. Vex strolled into the lab like she owned it, which apparently in some timeline she did. Temporal tourism is so gauche, don't you think? Like those people who can't stop posting vacation photos. I raised my hand like I was in grade school. Hi, yes, quick question. What the actual hell is going on? Both women turned to look at me. It was like being caught between 2 predators who momentarily forgot about each other because a particularly vocal snack walked by. Short version, Nova said, not taking her eyes off Vex. She's from my timeline. She's trying to change history so that she controls quantum tech earlier, giving her a 12-year head start on her plans to monetize time travel. How entrepreneurial of me, Vex said, examining her perfect manicure. Though you're missing a few details. Like how you're not exactly the heroic future self you're pretending to be. I looked between them. Explain.
Now.
Or I'm pulling the fire alarm and we can continue this conversation with the fire department watching.
Nova Sigid. Fine.
In my timeline, I'm not just you. I'm the head of Quantum Tech's Temporal Security Division. After the incident that's about to happen, the government classifies time travel as a national security asset. I've spent my career preventing people like Vex from exploiting temporal vulnerabilities. How noble, Vex said, slow clapping. Except you've conveniently omitted that you've been using your position to make certain adjustments to your own timeline. Little improvements here and there. Nothing major, just enough to make your life a bit more comfortable. I turned to Nova. Is that true? Everyone in the division does it, Nova said defensively. Small tweaks. Ethical adjustments. Like what? I demanded. Nova avoided my eyes. I may have insured our lottery ticket wins next month, and prevented that haircut disaster of 2026. That doesn't sound so bad, I admitted. Lottery money did sound nice. And I made sure Miles and I never got divorced by ensuring he never meets his research partner. By ensuring she fails her doctoral defense, Vex added helpfully. You sabotage someone's career for a man? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That's not me. It's complicated, Nova said. The point is, we need to stop the quantum core from destabilizing regardless of our personal issues. Vex sighed dramatically. Always so focused on the bigger picture. That's why you never see the little details, like the fact that I've already neutralized your little temporal stabilizer. She held up a crushed device. The quantum core behind her began to pulse erratically, the shimmering energy inside turning from blue to an angry red. 20 minutes until critical mass, the lab's AI announced cheerfully, as if it were telling us our pizza was almost ready. Ellie, Nova said urgently, you need to help me reset the quantum buffer while I realign the containment field. The override is 4-9-1-3-7. I finished. Both women looked at me in surprise.
What?
I work in tech support. I know all the emergency overrides. How do you think I fix the executives' computers when they lock themselves out for the 5th time in a week? I rushed to a secondary console and began entering commands. So, if we stop this meltdown, what happens to both of you? You just go back to your time? That's where it gets complicated, Nova said, working frantically at the main controls. The temporal bridge that brought us here will collapse. We'll be pulled back, but the timeline will already be altered. Small changes at first, then rippling outward. Like what? I asked, fingers flying over the keyboard. Like Dr. Kapoor remaining head of research instead of being pushed out by Vex. Like Miles meeting his research partner as originally intended. And my lottery ticket?
Nova paused.
That particular adjustment would be nullified. I thought about it for a moment.
Good.
I'd rather earn my wins. How disappointingly principled, Vex said, making no move to help. You know, I could offer you so much more than Nova. Why wait 12 years to become successful? Join me now and… Hard pass on the villain monologue, I interrupted. Nova, the buffer's resetting, but we're still showing critical instability in sectors 3 through 7. Because she's actively sabotaging us, Nova said through gritted teeth, pointing at Vex, who had quietly moved to another terminal. Just making a few ethical adjustments of my own, Vex said with a smile. I did the only thing that made sense. I pulled the fire alarm. Chaos ensued. Sprinklers activated, soaking all of us and the equipment. Vex shrieked about her suit being designer. The lab's emergency protocols kicked in, initiating an automatic stabilization sequence that Nova quickly modified. 10 minutes to temporal event horizon, the AI announced, somehow sounding even more cheerful while dripping wet. We need to eject the quantum core before it reaches critical mass, Nova shouted over the alarms. That will destroy 12 years of research, Vex protested. Better than destroying 12 years of reality, I shouted back, already entering the ejection sequence. Nova joined me at the console, our hands moving in perfect sync. On my mark. 3, 2, 1. We hit the ejection command together. The quantum core detached from its housing with a pneumatic hiss and began to rise toward a reinforced chamber in the ceiling. That's when Vex made her move. She lunged toward the manual override, but I was faster, barely. We grappled by the console, an absurd scene of me wrestling with a soaking wet woman in what used to be an expensive white suit. You don't understand what you're giving up, she hissed. I think I do, I replied, kneeing her in the stomach. Those self-defense classes I'd been taking on Thursdays weren't just good for stress relief after all. Vex doubled over, and Nova seized the opportunity to activate the final containment protocol. The quantum core was fully sealed in its isolation chamber just as it reached critical mass. A blinding flash of light filled the lab, and for a moment, reality seemed to bend around us. When my vision cleared, Vex was gone. Nova remained, but she looked translucent, like she was fading. "Did we do it?" I asked, picking myself up from the floor. Nova nodded. "The timeline is repairing itself. The major disaster has been averted." She looked down at her hands, which were becoming more transparent by the second. "I have about 2 minutes before I'm pulled back. Will you remember this? Will I become you?" "Yes and no," she said with a sad smile. "I'll remember, but your path is already different now. You're a branch, not my past anymore. So, no miles, no lottery, no quantum time police job. Your future is unwritten now. But knowing you, knowing us, I think you'll find your way to something even better." I considered this. "Any last-minute advice before you vanish dramatically?" "Ask out Flynn from cybersecurity instead of Miles. Trust me on that one."
She grinned.
"And maybe try that undercut sooner. It looks pretty badass." As Nova faded from view, the lab doors burst open. Dr. Prisha Kapoor, the real one, rushed in with a security team. She looked from me to the ejected core to the soaked equipment. "Ms. Knox, would you care to explain why you triggered an emergency core ejection? And why you're in a restricted area? And why you're soaking wet?" I stood up straight, channeling a bit of Nova's confidence. "Dr. Kapoor, I believe I just saved your company from a temporal disaster and corporate espionage. Also, your quantum containment protocols have a critical vulnerability that I'd be happy to help your team address." Dr. Kapoor stared at me for a long moment. "My office. 5 minutes. Dry clothes first." As the security team escorted me out, I caught a glimpse of someone watching from the hallway, a guy from cybersecurity whose name badge read Flynn. He gave me a curious look and a small nod of approval. I smiled to myself. Maybe Tuesdays weren't so bad after all. And maybe the future, my future, was going to be interesting in ways I never expected. After all, I had it on good authority that I looked pretty badass with an undercut.